Warning, this video is not suitable for some viewers. Also, I may have used some of your clips in this video. Hey everyone, it's Reek, and for today's countdown, I'm going to go through my top 10 favorite roller coaster helixes. It seems to vary throughout the coaster community on what should and shouldn't be called a helix. Personally, a helix is a turn that goes around 360 degrees or more, whether it's upwards, downwards, or both. Even a bit less than 360 is most likely considered a turnaround in my books. I don't know how all of you would consider what you'd call a helix, but I already have my personal gripes and considerations, so let's take all of that and jump right into this whirling good list. When you think of a helix, you'll most likely think about constant positive g-forces, and let me tell ya, the helix with constant lateral forces are the best kind of helixes, and Twister at Knoebels is a great example for that. As the most photogenic part of the ride, this helix has some standards. It's laterals from the start of the turn all the way to the end of the turn. I would go more crazy on this element, but I only got one ride on Twister. Yeah, I really need to get back to this part. Remember in part 2 of my Knott's Berry Farm coaster reviews that I called, or somewhat called, Raptor's final helix better than Silver Bullet's final helix? Well, times have changed. Raptor's helix may have the stronger positive g-forces, but Silver Bullet's helix has much more constant positives. Another upside to Red and Yellow Bullet's helix compared to Raptor's is the setting, because let me get it out there that an over-the-water setting is always better than a setting over just plain ground. One of the many atmospheric improvements Knott's has over Cedar Point. Goliath. Which Goliath? Well, it's a toss-up between the low-to-the-ground helix on Goliath at Magic Mountain and the midway helix on Goliath at Over Georgia. In the end though, I'm going to go with the helix on Goliath at Magic Mountain. Yes, your vision goes gray on both Goliath helixes due to the constant forces, but I like the Giovanilla Goliath helix more because it is much more bearable. Plus, the constantly strengthening positive G's is awesome. It's a great element from an otherwise strange hypercoaster. Have you ever ridden one of those windstorm or hurricane coasters? If so, did you know about this element which dives down and rises back up? Yes, I am counting this as a helix. It turns around at 360 degrees. It's a helix, alright? Now I'm not going to put the regular windstorm model on this list, because I'm instead going to put the smoother, indoor version of the windstorm ride at Six Flags Over Texas. Runaway Mountain is a surprisingly intense contraption, and the famous dive and rise goes to show. Not much else to say here, just embrace the intensity on this overlooked coaster. Before I go into much more detail, spoiler warning for Verbolten at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg. Just skip to the labeled time if you don't want to be spoiled. Alright then. Verbolten is surprisingly intense for a family coaster. It's not only the tight turns in Big Bad Wolf's old path, but the indoor section provides some of the craziest turns a family coaster can offer. It starts with this unexpectedly crazy overbank turn, and then the ride throws you into a surprise helix of dark forest doom. Even though it's pitch black in the building, I still see my vision going gray because of the constant forces. Trust me, don't underestimate this ride. Well, unless you're comparing this ride to Big Bad Wolf. In that case, underestimate away! On the topic of partially indoor coasters, spoiler warning for Expedition Everest at Disney's Animal Kingdom. Seriously, these rides are best if you first experience them for yourself. Okay, Disney's roller coasters are not known for their insanity, but there are definitely some exceptions. For example, the quick laterals and ejector airtime on the Magic Kingdom's Space Mountain, the launch and inversions on Rockin' Roller Coasters, and the surprise that lies inside the Forbidden Mountain. No, I'm not talking about the broken strobe light Yeti. I'm more so talking about what this ride does going backwards. If you don't like a combination of nyctophobia and motion sickness, then you would hate what action really happens inside the mountain. This is the only Helix on the list that takes riders backwards, and it scares the public to the point that they bring up that the coaster feels like it goes upside down at that point. And while it doesn't actually go upside down in any slight possibility, it somewhat feels like it does an inversion. It's all part of the Disney magic. And the honor for most intense Helix goes to... the Upward Helix on Titan at Six Flags Over Texas. Wow, this thing is forceful. Your butt isn't just glued into your seat on this Helix, your butt is flex glued into your seat on this Helix. This Helix, plus the Helix leading after, are the only elements on a roller coaster that made me feel dizzy. X2's elements didn't make me dizzy, I didn't feel nauseous by anything on Green Lantern at Magic Mountain, at least internally. It was a hypercoaster that was supposedly built for families, because everything is big in Texas, including headaches. Remember when I said that I like Big Thunder Mountain Railroad more the more I ride it? Well, that sure as hell was the case with my last few rides on it. How the hell are front row night rides on Big Thunder even legal at Disney? I don't get it when people call the back row the best seat on this ride, because the front row put me in absolute shock. And of course, my favorite moment on Big Thunder Mountain is the downward Helix in the second third of the ride. This element is nothing but full-fledged laterals from start to finish. And do you want to know what the best part of this element is? You can experience it alone in your own row. You get to slide all over the place throughout the layout, and the Helix is just the icing on the hoodoo-themed cake. It's not a mountain, it's a canyon of hoodoos. Get it right, y'all. The Beast at Kings Island, the coaster with the single best element in the entire park, the final Helix. Riders get one of the most legendary moments of lateral forces of all time. This Helix absolutely slams you to the side, and there's nothing you could really do about it. Sure, it would be better without the trim brakes, but it's still wild with them on. Yes, I did say that this was the best element at Kings Island. It's better than the first few hills on Diamondback, better than the inversions on Banshee, and even better than all of the twisting and hopping on Mystic Timbers. I don't know if anything on Orion would top this element, but it would be a damn miracle if it did. The Helix on the Beast is the best element on a coaster at Kings Island. But it's not my favorite Helix of all time. So here are a few honorable mentions before we completely spiral out of control. Sierra Sidewinder. The low to the ground turns are my favorite moments on Sierra Sidewinder, and the Helix at the middle of the ride serves itself worthy. Goliath at Over Georgia. Come on, of course I think this Goliath's Helix is awesome. Now we just need to remove that B&M rattle and it would actually make my top 10. The Smoky Mountain Alpine Coaster. Alpine coasters are awesome, enough said. The coaster at Ghosts on the Roof. Alpine coasters are awesome, enough said. Backlot Stunt Coaster. Hey, why do all the family coasters get the intense Helixes? The Legend. How to be a successful traditional wooden coaster. Step 1. Lateral filled Helix. Step 2. Profit. Raptor at Cedar Point. If you ran out of inversions for your inverted coaster, just add a Helix.
It works every time.
Carolina Gold Rusher. Aero mine trains are underrated. Enough said. Wilderness Run at Carowinds. Yes, there's airtime on here. Yes, there's a Helix with airtime on it. Yes, this is a kiddie coaster with a Helix with airtime on it. I'm not going crazy, these coaster designers are. On to number 1. This past October, I went to Not Scary Farm for the very first time, and it was amazing. This park really knows how to put on a Halloween event, ranging from the active scare zones to the intricately designed mazes. But best of all, this is where all the rides run at their absolute best. I didn't ride all of the rides there, because I was dumb enough to wait 90 minutes for a slow operating accelerator, but I did have one big highlight with the rides that night. To top off the night, I decided to ride Ghost Rider. None of the tracer lights were on, so I was in for a big surprise. Now I love Ghost Rider, and I was expecting the expected with what this ride offers. But when I rode Ghost Rider during Scary Farm... Oh my god! This ride was running so freaking fast! I mean, I'm surprised that the ride still stays on the tracks by the end of the night! This ride used to be my 5th favorite night ride on a coaster, but now it's shot up all the way to number freaking 1! The pacing of the elements are so quick, the airtime strength has increased, the laterals have gotten so crazy to the point where the turnaround above the station is actually a memorable moment on the ride, and the final helix is the best freaking thing ever. You get so much laterals here that it somewhat feels like you're also getting airtime. How the fuck that's even possible, I will never know. This helix alone shot the ride up from my top 20 favorite coasters to my top 5. Thanks, Ghost Rider. You made me pop a blood vessel by just talking about you. And that's all of the helixes I can handle today. Do you have a favorite helix? If so, comment below on what constantly turning phenomenon takes you to your happy place. Other than that, stay tuned for more stuff from SingleRiderReak, and have a thrilling rest of the day.